Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ryan, and welcome to Central Park. We know that getting to Central Park still is pretty difficult for a lot of people, so we want to continue bringing the park to you through longer virtual 45-minute long programs held on select Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, as well as our shorter informal weekly walks held every Wednesday at 12:30. Thank you for joining us today for a weekly walk. We're going to be exploring the Hallett Nature Sanctuary today. We're going to be together for about 15 minutes. Just about all the photos you're going to see were taken by myself over the past week here in Central Park. I will use a few other photos we might see accessed from public archives like the Museum of the City of New York City Parks Department, and New York Historical Society. We here at the Central Park Conservancy are the nonprofit that take care of Central Park. We help keep the park clean and green, and our mission is to preserve and celebrate Central Park as a sanctuary from the pace and pressures of city life, in enhancing the enjoyment and well-being of all. Before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. We are using Zoom. If you do want to say hello, please use the chat feature. Maybe let us know where you're joining us from. You can also keep an eye on the chat box later for useful links for upcoming programs and other things that we offer at the Conservancy. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. My colleagues Jose, Juan, and Ian are all on the back end answering any questions you might have. Last thing you'll see, which I'll introduce throughout the tour, are going to be some visitor polls that you can vote in. And once you vote in those, they'll disappear. Now let's begin our walk. We're going to be again exploring today the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. And the Hallett Nature Sanctuary is a really interesting area in Central Park. It's the smallest woodland, coming in at just 4 acres, located in the southeastern corner of Central Park. It's also got a really interesting history though, because it wasn't always named the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. It used to be named the Promontory. And the promontory really just refers to a part of land that juts out into a water body. As we can see on the map, the Hallett does, sticking out into the pond, an area we're going to be walking around to get into the Hallett. As we begin our walk, we'll learn a little bit more about the Hallett in just a bit, but we'll start on 60th Street and 5th Avenue, kind of near Central Park, right in between Grand Army Plaza and Central Park. And as we enter on this nice sunny day, we'll walk into the shadows of 59th Street, walking along the shadowy portions of the pond. And as we walk a little bit closer into the park, we can see some of the beauty of the surrounding pond landscape. One of the about 7 bodies of water here in Central Park, and the one that surrounds the Hallett Nature Sanctuary, which we can start to see on the left of this image. You can also look to the right and see a very picturesque, famous bridge, which we visited a few weeks ago, the Gapstow Bridge. We're going to start walking along the south side of the pond now. And as we walk along the shadows, we can bear off to the right for just a moment to see the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. I'm going to actually launch a little poll right now and see if anybody has ever visited the Hallett before. The Hallett, again, has a really storied history behind it. Originally, it was called the Promontory, which really just relates to the body of land that juts out into a body of water. Originally, the Promontory had no paths to walk around, so it's a real treat today that we can actually walk inside of the Hallett. As we start to walk around the south side, we can see the Hallett as we walk along the lush green areas of Central Park South and the bottom section of the pond. And walking by, we can enjoy some of the beauty of these little shrubs, as well as we walk, pay some respects to some relics of the past season. We're finally in spring now, and we can certainly feel it and hear it as we walk around the park, but we'll still see some signs of winter that are hanging over, like this ice ladder, as well as some of the only remaining ice left in Central Park, which is located down here at the pond. Luckily, a lot warmer weather we're experiencing as we walk through the park during this time. And as we continue walking along to the west shore of the pond, we can see one of my favorite pieces of artwork to exist here in Central Park. That piece of artwork is actually right along this railing edge. And it's this plaque, which was put in around 2001, during the time when the pond and the surrounding landscape underwent a major restoration project. This piece is very, very special to me because it's interactive. After the weather assists us a little bit, or in this case, if I assist us by adding a little bit of water, we can see how this piece of art comes to life. This piece represents the topographical look of the surrounding area. So once water is added, we can see the pond actually taking shape, showing us topography of the area and really giving us a visual image of the pond, as well as the Hallett, which again is sticking out into the pond's landscape. A really cool interactive piece of art that can be found on the west shore of the pond. As we start to continue walking, I will share that poll we have. And it looks like actually we have about a tie amongst everybody that's voted. It looks like a lot of people, it's their first time visiting. And that's not a surprise because the Hallett only became open to the public in 2016. So it's only been open for about 5 years for us to actually have the ability to explore around. So really cool. We're happy to show a lot of people in here for the first time. And we're making our way up to the entrance of the Hallett now as we start to exit the shadows and walk into the sun. And as we walk up a little bit more, we can glance over to our right and we can see part of the Hallett. You can see a large rocky cliff type structure. This area is going to look pretty different in a month or so. If we take a flashback towards the summertime, we can see what this area typically looks like. You might notice a little bit more detail on the bottom. There's water actually cascading down. This area is nicknamed or known as the Hallett Cascade. But during the winter time, there's no water flowing from here. We're going to see why once we get into the Hallett. This is a waterfall that's actually only on during the summer months and actually gets shut off during the winter. So as we snap back to reality and continue up the path, we'll enjoy the lush green of this walkway as we walk up to the entrance of the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. And as we come up, we're making our way just to the entranceway. But before we do enter the Hallett, we're going to throw away any trash we might have in the trash cans because there are no trash cans found in any woodlands in Central Park. Something purposely done and something really important because this simple task or simple feature reduces the amount of rodents we see in woodlands. So by taking garbage cans out of the woods, we're actually going to see a much bigger abundance of chipmunks and squirrels than we are rats. Certainly, definitely a great benefit. And as we throw away our trash, we can start entering the Hallett, looking at the very beautiful wooden black locust gates that welcome us in. This area did get fenced off in the 1900s. Originally, again, started as the promontory, eventually being closed in 1934 and being surrounded with fences. This was originally closed to become a bird sanctuary. It wasn't until about 1986 when it received the name Hallett Nature Sanctuary, getting the name after George H. Hallett Jr., and a city activist, naturalist, and a bird watcher. As we enter the Hallett Nature Sanctuary, we can enjoy the beautiful, again, black locust wood gate, which really welcomes us and beckons us to come in. As we enter the Hallett, we can remember its history continuing. It did receive the name the Hallett in 1986, but there was still a lot of work to be done. In the 2000s, there was an Asian longhorn beetle that was discovered in the Hallett. That's a beetle that spreads the fungus that causes Dutch elm disease, a disease that wipes out elm trees. Once that beetle was found and taken care of, we started evaluating the area and saw that this area was largely taken over by two species of trees. One tree that's native, a black cherry, and another tree that's not native, an Atlantis. It led to a major restoration of this project, which began in the 2000s and wasn't finished until 2016. Now we have a lot of native plantings, whether you can see them blooming during the spring or summertime, or if they're lying dormant in the winter, that surround the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. And again, this area used to not have paths to be able to walk through. Today, we're lucky to have access. Along with the Central Park Conservancy, an organization that formed for this project called ROOTS, which stands for the Restoration of the Outdoors, organized by teen students, was able to come help create pathways here. And these pathways are great because not only do they help us stay on the path, but they feature this beautiful outdoor carpet material you can see in a couple of our woodlands. And this material actually allows for strollers and wheelchairs to be wheeled through it, allowing access, allowing people in wheelchairs and strollers to be able to climb up a mountain and see views you might not normally have access to. A really cool feature about the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. And we can see views of the surrounding pond as well as other paths like this one that take us over the Gap-style bridge. A lot of view during the winter time. And as we come up and hang a right, we can walk over some of these paths which take us to the west side of the Hallett. As we're walking over towards the west side, we'll come up to a little stopping point. And as we walk a little bit closer to the edge, being careful we don't fall over, we can get a familiar view of where we were standing before, just down on this pathway looking up on this area that will, in a few months or a month or so, have water flowing over. Typically, a little cascade will flow off of this rock into the lower body of water, eventually connecting to the pond and keeping a nice chain and flow of water going. Right now, the water is not running. They'll typically run through these naturally formed grooves in the rocks. But where's the water coming from? This pipe. Not to ruin the magic, but to just show kind of the creativity and ingenuity of this park. All of the bodies of water, as well as the waterfalls, are man-made, but are designed to look natural. And this pipe gets a nice little covering up by another natural feature, a log, to block it off and make it look a little bit more natural. I like to compare Central Park to Disneyland because it looks really whimsical, but when you pay close attention, you can see the strings pulling the puppets. And this isn't to take away the magic of this, but it's really to appreciate all the ingenuity and all of the great ideas that went into this almost first theme park, which is theme is nature. So it's a really cool disguise that we can see throughout the park to create these elements which look so natural. As we exit this little waterfall cascade area, we continue heading a little south in the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. And as we start walking down the path, we can see the rhododendron and other shrubs block out our view, so we have to wander around and get a little lost. As we travel over, we can bear down this path on the right, one of the out and back trails. And as we come down, we can see a tree on our right-hand side. This tree, which is growing very tall and very quickly, is an Atlantis tree. This is one of the two species of trees I mentioned before, this one being not native, that had taken over the Hallett in such large numbers. These trees, which are originally from Asia, grow very, very quickly, sometimes known as the ladder to heaven because of their speed and growth. But on top of that, they release a lot of seeds, and they also release a toxin that suppresses other trees' growth. Today, you can find a few Atlantis in the park and in the Hallett, but of course, in much thinner numbers than they were. And it provides a great learning example. If anybody's ever read the book, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, this is the tree that they're talking about. Fun one that we can see growing in the Hallett. And as we make our way down this path, we can see, and we can go to an area known as Hackberry Hill. Hackberry Hill is a fun little overlook point, and it gets its name from this really cool hackberry tree, which has one of my favorite rustic benches surrounding it. These rustic benches and fences all made in-house by the Conservancy's rustic crew. This offers a great spot for you to sit down and enjoy the park, or get a view standing up from this beautiful overlook. And coming along this overlook will capture views of the surrounding pond and landscape nearby, like looking over this other large rock outcropping, which is mountaining out of the ground and just parallel to us. But a nice overlooking view of the surrounding landscapes, which become a little more expansive during this leftover winter season. As we start to exit the Hackberry Hill, located just on the kind of top right of this map over here, we'll make our way to just 2 more stops before we end our walk. I do actually want to launch a poll though. Coming from Hackberry Hill, it's a favorite spot of mine to enjoy the view, as well as just to sit down and enjoy the park. So on that note, where's your favorite area to enjoy the park? Of course, many different ways to enjoy the park and many different areas. So I'll leave that poll up and we'll share that in just a little bit. But for now, we'll continue walking along to our last stop or two. Making our way back from Hackberry Hill and hanging a left will bring us downhill to the longest out and back trail there is. And as we walk down this trail into the shadows, we may be leaving the sunlight, but we're still getting a lot of color. Color in the form of birds. We're having a lot of birds stop by and say hello, which is a great sign because it's springtime. And in the spring, we're going to see a lot of migratory birds passing through. Although we had quite a few hellos from some native local birds that can be seen here year long, like these 2 blue jays, one up here on the right and one down here in the middle. Actually, looks like there might be 3, another one tucked away over here. We also get a nice little visit by a red-bellied woodpecker coming to say hello, as well as a favorite of everybody's, that fully red male cardinal. So a lot of activity, of course, and again, a lot of migratory birds are going to be passing through. Central Park is right underneath the Atlantic Flyway, which brings dozens and dozens and dozens of birds through this area. But no matter the season, you can always find some beautiful color in the birds of Central Park. And as we walk down the path a little bit, we can see another area for people to enjoy a nice conversation or view. Coming down here, we can get beautiful views of the pond. This is my favorite angle and shot of the pond we were able to see on this walk. I love the way the light is just glimmering off it, and we see that almost lagoon color to it. A nice, just light color that kind of just beckons us to relax in this area. But certainly a beautiful view and one of my favorite along our walk today. As we continue walking back up that path, doing a little bit of backtracking up the hill, after we catch our breath, we'll make it to the top and we'll see those vast, vast buildings growing, those large skyscrapers of Central Park South. And we'll actually take an ending stop just up this path a little bit. As we walk up, we can come to arguably my favorite spot to capture a view, as well as to experience the balance of the city. Coming up to this last viewpoint, we can see a wonderful little guardrailing area that takes us over somewhere we can get a nice lean and look over on the city just south of the park. As we come up, we can notice some, again, beautiful wooden architecture. And coming up to this piece this time, I started seeing something a little different. Might be obvious, I'm sure maybe some other people notice it right away, but I love being able to see things in different light. I've come to this area dozens of times, and this was the first time that this stood out to me really more as a tree. Might be obvious since it's made of wood, but this center pole being the trunk and these being the branches that are holding this little walkway or holding this little railing way together. It really took on new life and new meaning for me. And I really love how we can come to these areas dozens and dozens of times, but we can see something new in them each time. So this was a new meaning for me and something that certainly I was admiring for quite some time while we stopped at this point on our walk. And this is a great spot to do any type of admiring or really feeling the balance that the city and the park helps to create. In this area, we can take one final view looking over at, of course, the city that has been growing around this natural gem of a park. Of course, a perfect balance between nature and architecture, and arguably one of the best areas in the park to experience this mix. So we'll take this in as our last view, enjoying a beautiful area to experience the park and to learn about nature. I hope everybody enjoyed and learned a little bit of something new about the Hallett Nature Sanctuary. Again, this was an area that started getting restoration done in the 2000s and wasn't fully open to the public until 2016. This was a really long restoration project, but certainly worth it. And I'm sure a lot of people will agree as you get to walk through the beauty of the Hallett. The Hallett is open to the public now from 10 a.m. to half an hour before sunset every day. The only days you'll really see it closed is if there's inclement weather like heavy rain or snowfall. But other than that, the Hallett's a great spot to stop by and enjoy, especially in the upcoming spring season as we get a bunch of birds stopping by. I will actually end and share that last poll before we leave, just so we can see a favorite. And looks like a lot of us share the same favorite area to enjoy the park, wandering in the woods. Whether you're wandering in the woods, laying on a lawn, sitting on a bench, batting on the ball fields, or meandering in the meadow, there's plenty of great ways to enjoy Central Park. And we're happy that you're enjoying it with us on these weekly walks. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we have plenty of other ways to stay involved. If you do want to continue learning about the park, we have a Crossing Central Park tour that's going to be on March 30th at 3 p.m. You can check the chat box now for the links to these upcoming programs that I'm mentioning. You can also see on March 31st, Touring Central Park in the 19th century, a really cool one of our park series that gets really in depth and features a lot of really cool images and conversations. And of course, we're going to continue the weekly walks. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be taking you through the pool at 12:30. So certainly want to thank you so much for joining us today and for making these walks really special for us. And we hope to see you again in the future. I'm going to leave this chat room open for anybody that has last minute questions we can hopefully get to. But from all of us here at the Central Park Conservancy, thank you, stay safe, and be well. We'll see you all soon.